Hey there, welcome to the channel. In our last video we spoke about uh, the data types object. Now we want to go ahead to look at operators. Basically we have uh, some common operators divided into majorly 5 parts. We have the arithmetic operators, we have the comparison operators, we have the logical operators, assignment operators, and the ternary operators. I'll be looking into them briefly, quickly, trying to see what each does and how they interplay and how we can use them in JavaScript. The first is the arithmetic operators. These are our basic mathematical operators. We have the addition operator, the subtraction, multiplication. Permit me to use that. So to open Coca again, Control Shift P. Since I've opened it before, I come here and I click Coca. But if you're first time using Coca, you have to search for it and then select the new JavaScript file option. Alright, so with it we have let number. So number one is let's say 2. Let's give it value of 12. Let num 2 equals to, let's say, 36. Okay, so we can have let sum num1 plus num2, and we can see what that gives us. So you see sum is 48. Let me make this bigger. So you see the sum is 48. That is addition, and we have subtraction. So we can say let num2 or num1 minus num2, just the basic operators. You see that gives us minus 24. We have the multiplication. Let's say num2 num1 multiplied by num2. We see that is 432. So just our normal basic operations in mathematics. So that is why these are under the category arithmetic operators. Division, or we can say num2 divided by num1, and division is 3, because 36 divided by 12 will give us 3. Now there are other arithmetic operators. We have the modulus, we have the increment, the decrement, and the power. So for the modulus, let's say let modulus is the percentage symbol. So for instance, let's say we have num, or let's just say 23, and we say modulus 4. What this means is when you say 23 divided by 4, the remainder is what is the modulus. So 23 divided by 4 is 5, and it remains 3. So that is this is 5, and it remains 3. Now what modulus gives you is the remainder, which is 3. So if we check what modulus is, you see it's 3. Now this is very useful for us, especially when we're solving algorithm questions that has to do with you need to know if a number is actually divisible by another. So let's see if a number is divisible. So let's say mod is equals to, remember num2 is 36 and num1 is 12. So this will give us 3. But if we were to use modulus, sorry, num2 modulus num1, now what would that be? That would be 36 divided by 12. What do we have there? That is 3, and it remains 0. So this will give us what? Mod is 0. So whenever we have a modulus of 0, it means that the numbers the divisor, the number 1 in this instance is a multiple of num2, or you can say that num1 is divisible by num1. So for instance, if you need to know if a number is a multiple of another, modulus is what should be coming to your mind, because modulus will tell you if there's a remainder. So it's an important arithmetic operator to note. We also have the increment. So remember, num2 is 36. So if we say num2 minus minus, let's see what does that do for us. It decrements it by 1. That is what minus minus does. And if I say num1 is 12 and I said num1 plus plus, what does that give us? Num1, you see, num1 is now 13. That is important. So this, when you just want to add one item to something, you just do plus plus. When you just quickly want to remove the value of 1, you just use minus minus, and that'll be fine. Another one is this power. You can say 2 raised to the power of 5. 2 raised to the power of 5 is 32. So let's see what power is 32. So you rather than use the maths, because there's another, you could just say 2 math dot power, and you can just basically say 2 raised to the power of 5, and basically it gives you the same thing. So I prefer to use this since it basically does the same thing, and I don't need to be calling or importing any other method. So this is a short way of doing this. So 2 raised to the power of 5 is just double star, just like the multiplication, but double of it, so it becomes 2 raised to the power of 5. And this is especially useful, especially when you want to do power of 10s. So that's 10 raised to the power of 3, that will be 1000. So that's the power symbol. Now this arithmetic symbol plus, as I noted here, can also be used on strings, as I will show us here now. So let's say we have a string 1 is I am, okay, and let's string 2 be a boy. So what we could do was a string 1 plus string 2. This is okay in programming in JavaScript. So if I show you what str is, it is I am a boy. Now you notice there is no space between, so we could just add the space. So it becomes I am a boy. So it's whatever was in the first string 1, which is I am, it adds a space, and that is where we have a space between am and a, and then we have a boy. So we call this concatenation in JavaScript. So you can concatenate 2 strings using the add arithmetic operator. So this is where you must be careful now, because when you add string, what it does is just concatenate them together. When you add, so let's say st is equals to, when you add 23 like this with 34, st gives us 2 3 3 4. It doesn't add them together, no. So that is where it's important to note, have an understanding of your data types, because when you add anything with string, so let's say st here is let's say 23 plus 34. Now you know that this is a string, but this is a number. So let's see, what does adding them give us? It still gives us the same thing, because when you are adding anything with a string, any number with a string, what it does, it converts this to a number and to a string automatically, and then it adds it to the 2 2 3 4. So for it to sum up, you have to do 23 plus 34 as numbers. That is what we now sum up as a number to be 57. I hope that was clear. So we need to be careful about that. We also have the comparison operators now. So comparison operators are used for comparison. Basically, you want to know if what's on the left, for instance, be equal to what's on the left is equals to what's on the right. We have the strictly equal to. I'll show us that in a minute. We have the not equals to. Now if I were to show us this quickly, so we have the comparison operators. So if I were to show us this quickly, let's I is equals to 33, let's J is equals to 33. Now in JavaScript, if I should come and say let's answer, we say 33 is equals to, sorry, I is equals to J. Let's see, what does answer say? It says it's true that I and J are the same. But now let's go and use the strictly equal to and see what we have there. I is equals to J. Now don't mind, this is just my editor making it like this. Is actually equal to 3 of it. So I equals to J. Let's see what that gives us. Strictly equal to, that is I equals to J. So what does that give us? False. Because what this just does is it checks the content, the value. It checks inside, this is 33 and this is 33, that's fine. But what this does is that it checks that, okay, the value might be 33 within, but this is an integer, a number, and this is a string. So they are not the same. They are not of the same type. This is of type number and this is of type string, and so they are not equal. So it says that this is false. So I always advise to use strictly equals to, except when you understand the implication of using the double equals to. Because for instance, if you're expecting a number and the person puts a string and you are using the double equals to, it will accept it as true and then it will go on your code and it will give a problem there. So let's take note of that. So we have the not equals to and we have the strictly not equals to. It's just basically the same part with the equal to and the strictly not equal to, just like in comparison also. So when I is not equal to J, so for instance 23 is not 34, and this also applies to strings. Let me use an example here. So ans is equals to, so we can say boy is not equals to, yeah, and this should give us a true because boy is not the same as girl. The string boy is not. But if I come here and I change this to boy, sorry, it becomes false because boy is equals to boy in actual sense. So that is the not equals to. We have the greater than, we have the less than, greater than or equals, less than or equal. I believe these are kind of straightforward. We have the logical operators. Now what are logical operators? This, we have the and, the or, and we have that which negates. So for example, you say you go to the market and you buy grocery, that means you do both of them. But if I say you go to the market or you go to the church, that is, you are picking one of it. You are either going to go to the market or you go to the church. So let me explain that in the code. So let's say let's say church is true, and let's market, let's say that's false. So our answer, let's say church. Now the AND operator is using this operator. This is the AND, two AND symbols, church and market. So if I say church and market, what should there be? That means this is true and this is false. That will be what the answer will be, what? False. Why is it false? Is because for it to be true, both of them has to be true. That is and. So when everything must be true for us to get a true, that is true. We use an and. So if I change this to an and, or if I come down here and I say church or market, for and for or, one of them just needs to be true. Either the church is true or the market is true. It is fine. So when you need only one condition to be true, you have two things you are checking, and you just want one to be true, and for it to execute something, you can use the or. But when every condition must be met, so for instance, in a password system, you want to check before you log in, you want to check the username exists. You want to check that the username exists to be true, and you want to check that the password is correct. So for example, in such a system, you want to make sure that both conditions are true. So in this kind of situation, what you use is you use the user exists and the password is correct. So if for example the password goes false, we see that it says false and it will not open. Or if the user exists is also false, it still gives us false because both of them must be true. Our user must exist and that password must be correct. So for us to be able to log in, it means that the user must exist and the password must be correct. So this is an example where you can use the AND operator, the AND logical operator, and then the OR logical operator also. So for example, you are checking if it is 1 or 0. So you are checking, so you are saying answer is either 0 or 1. So this will give you now. So if I was saying user exists or the password is correct, so I'm just saying the user just needs to be existing, or if a password is put for whatever reason, I know this is a weird example, for whatever reason, so this will be true here. But if for example this becomes false, you find out that this is true, this is still true because we are saying that any of them, when any of them is true, then the answer should be true. So when you need a true value, when any value is true, you use or. But when both values must be true, or depending on how many things you are comparing, when all of them must be true for it to be true, then you use the AND operator. Then we have the negate operator. The negate is just to do the opposite of that. So yeah, so user exists. So user exists is true here. But if I should say user exists is equals to, if I negate user exists, let's see what user exists becomes. It becomes false because what I'm saying is user exists should now be negate whatever is there. So what is in user exists before? True. When you negate it, it becomes what? False. So this could be an important tool you could use. We have the assignment operator. So the assignment operators are basically to assign values. So we have the equals to. So basically our mathematical operators, we have them, but let me show us what an operator. We have been using the assignment operator. So let a variable name is equals to something. So what we are doing here is we are assigning something into this variable. So that is why equals to, wherever we see equals to, is an assignment. Don't confuse this with the equal to. This is equal to. We are comparing the left and the right, or strictly equals to, where we are comparing the left and the right too. But when we just have a single equal to, we are not comparing. Whatever is on the right, we are putting it into whatever is on the left. So for example here, whatever was on the right, we put it into whatever is in the left. So what is in the right is user exists, true. Negate it, it becomes false. We put that false into user exists, and that's why user exists becomes false here. This is the assignment. Now we have basically, now let's say we want to make it, okay, variable. We want to say variable is equals to variable plus something, so that we could have it something else. So we wanted to make something else. So we said variable is equal to variable plus. Now when you have something like this, what you could just do is, rather than do this, there is a shortcut of plus equals to else. So what this does is, instead of you having to write variable 2 times, you can just assign it. It will add this and assign it to it. Let's so let me use numbers here because numbers will be, so if we have variation and we say plus equals to 3, so what is variation at this point? 26. If I say variation, now we have the minus equals to the same thing. So what this will do is, it will remove from variation whatever was this. So if I put 20, variation should be 6 because variation was 26. So variation is equals to variation minus 20. That's what this basically does. So instead of having to write variation minus 20, it just minus equals to, will do that for you. The same thing if you say variation multiplied equals to 6, that does, or let me say 3. So that would be 6. I mean, variation is equals to, what was in variation? 6. 6 times 3 is what? 18. We put that back into variation, and variation gives us 18. So that is 18. The same thing with the division. So I say variation divide equals to 6, and this should give me what? 3. I believe it's clear. We have for the modulus basically the same thing. So 3 modulus, sorry, 3 modulus equals to, so I'm saying that variation modulus of 2, variation is 3 at this point, modulus of 2 is what? 1, because 3 divided by 2 is 1 and it remains 1, so the remainder is what? 1. You see, variation is 1. Basically for the power is going to be the same thing, as it follows the same trend. And the ternary operator, this is another way of putting our if statement. We have not talked about if statement. We will possibly come back to this, or maybe when we are actually writing algorithms, we will touch on this. I especially like to use this, and I will show scenarios where this will be useful. So this is the ternary operators. So we have looked at different types of operators, 5 common types of operators: the arithmetic, the ternary, the conditional, comparison, sorry, the logical, and the assignment operators. So if you have any questions on operators or anything we've looked on, or anything general in programming, please do feel free to drop it in the comment section, and I'll do my possible best to respond as soon as possible. And I want you to remember that the only way to be better at anything is actually by digging in on that thing. Please subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you in the next